Welcome to EntrePods, the most cutting-edge podcast for entrepreneurs and investors. We answer the hottest question today. So now what? We are radically civilized with a focus on durable solutions that make the most positive impacts in your business, financial, personal, and community life. The world right now belongs to entrepreneurs. Today, we'll show you through our expert conversations that matter, the limitless opportunities you have right now to live the life of your dreams. The best version of you and your business starts now. Welcome to EntrePods.
Well, hello, EntrePods. You're going to be very excited about our guest today. So you've got me, Jennifer Glegerich. Tammy has taken the day off, but that's okay because we do this a lot ourselves. So the person I have on today started out about 30 years ago in 1991, selling, installing, servicing, financing computers. Yes, we had them back then. And then he did this for very large corporations because those are the people who really had computers. And after doing that, he moved into entrepreneurship and he started owning multiple different types of businesses. So for all of my real estate peeps, he has real estate ventures that he's done, finance, different sorts of e-commerce, the consumer sector. So he has this really great wealth of knowledge. And so now, after all this lifetime of experience, he coaches people on finance and entrepreneurship. He's an author, written a book. And so I want everyone to welcome the incredible Henry Daas to the show. So Henry, thank you for being here today on EntrePods.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be anywhere, to be honest, but here especially.
So tell me about, so you wrote a book and it was like a big book. It was like 428 some odd pages.
It's a monstrous. In fact, I was on a podcast a couple of days ago and he had the book and he's like holding it up, showing how thick it is because it's like as thick as a phone book. He's like, nobody's going to read this. It's too thick. It's like, yeah, I know. I've heard that before, but it's got a lot of pictures in it. So just remember that.
Okay. That's good.
So it's like a Dr. Seuss book. So just about the size of a phone book. But yeah, it's called FQ, Financial Intelligence. It's kind of a brain dump of 40 years of adulthood, even going back to my childhood, about everything I thought somebody needed to know in order to manage their own finances and manage it and grow it well. So that's why I wrote it.
I think that's really important. I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and with my work right now with EntrePods and Entrepreneurs HQ and Armor Up Consulting, you name it. And one of the things that I talk to people about, they said, well, how did you get through homelessness, right? Because I have a real interesting backstory as a kid. I was a pregnant, homeless teen, and I got through it. And I said, well, number one, the thing that really got me through it is I have an incredible family. Like today, you'd think I'd grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. It just happened that during that time, everybody crapped out. And then they all got their crap together. But it's when I needed them, right? And so my early formative years, I was given my core of being a valuable, wonderful person. And so that really saved me, I think, from kids who do not have that because they are at an extreme disadvantage. But one of the things I learned was rich people and even successful, happy people, they think about money in very different ways than very poor people do.
Sure do.
And it's also the reason poor people stay poor. I can't tell you, staying in Covenant House, a homeless shelter, how many times I saw well-dressed parents dropping their kids off because they didn't want their kids to have to go to the adult shelter with them. And there's no way you'd ever known, chance in hell, you would have thought that they were homeless. And just weeks before, they had a roof over their head. They had been working, but something happened. And I don't think most people want to even think about the fact that there are tens, if not hundreds of millions of people that honestly, when they live paycheck to paycheck, they really do. And a lot of it is their mindset. It's what they do with their money, how they think about their money, and how they invest. So I think what you're doing is very valuable. So tell me a little bit about that. And what are some of the things that you teach people that you work with?
Well, I take a systematic approach because I'm an engineer. So when I actually wrote the book, I wrote 18, wrote a table of contents, 18 chapters, and I started at the beginning and ended at the end. And the very first chapter is the psychology of money, which is exactly what you're talking about. What's the different mindset between people who are wealthy. Now, I stop short of saying, I've said very often that there's a big difference between being wealthy and having a lot of money. So, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet, but how you think about it, I consider there are two goalposts. On one side, there's scarcity. On the other side, there's abundance, right? I grew up, my mother was a Depression baby, born in 1927, got burned out, carried out by firemen in 1932 in Flatbush, Brooklyn in the middle of the Depression. So, yeah, she lived in scarcity her whole life. And I was raised that way. And that's sort of like my default, my fallback or my default or knee-jerk reaction is always scarcity. So I've had to teach myself abundance. And that's hard, right? If you're pre-programmed to be thinking about this. But I've been successful at it because I was talking to someone the other day. People talk about stock market investing. That's very risky. I've been doing it for 40 years. My risk tolerance is much, much higher than I would give myself credit for, right? Things that probably when I was in my 20s, I would never consider doing. I'll do now. I'll put a big stock trade on, but I know how to do it. I know how to set my metrics. I know how to protect my downside. And yeah, every once in a while, somebody takes my lunch away. That doesn't stop me from moving forward. I dust myself off and I do another trade. All I got to do is one more good trade than bad trade, and I'll make money. It's as simple as that. But that's a mindset.
That is a mindset. Because I got to tell you, there's probably a lot of people listening here that are going like, yeah, no, that's terrifying. Because it's got to have a little more faith in you and yourself and what you're doing and your acceptable risk and writing some things down, because money is money. You think about money. If you think about money in an abundant mindset as this unlimited thing, there's more than enough money. I mean, look at our government. We're printing 1.9 trillion of it.
We printed 5 trillion. The world is awash with money. I tell entrepreneurs that all the time. Go get some of it.
Go get some of it. And it comes to you. And then what are you going to do with it? Well, then it flows right out to bills and people that you have working for you and, artisans and craftsmen and plumbers and electricians. And this goes out back into the world. So when you think about it more like, well, the more I make, the more people that I can help while I'm helping myself, because, I need this fixed, but now I'm helping this plumber because I'm giving this plumber this job. So when you just make those little tiny tweaks in your head, you can get away from the guilt factor or this feeling that, well, the only rich people I know are miserable or mean or bad, or they harm people. That's how they get rich. I mean, there are a lot of just crazy things. Now, are there people who do that? Yeah,
sure
there are. And they make the news for it. And that's why it's in our consciousness.
Right. They end up in the headlines, but then there are lots and lots of folks that are out there that are not doing that.
Right. Like a majority of people.
Right. We're out there, through COVID now, we haven't gone out to dinner very much because everything has been closed up. But on the few times that we did go out, we made sure we overordered and overtipped. We want to keep these people in business. The only way to do that is to give them money. Right.
That's right.
So you need to support the local artisans, the plumbers. Now, I'm not saying you should be a doormat and let people rip you off, because there's always that. For every yin, there's a yang. You do need to be smart about how you allocate your assets and how you manage your profit and loss. Again, that gets back to mindset. I don't live like a spendthrift, but I don't deprive myself either. I learned very, very early on. It's what they call the boots theory, right? And the boots theory is basically, do you go out and buy the cheapest pair of boots that you can if you're a working person, and then you wear them out and replace them? Or do you go out and you buy the more expensive and the best boots you can, because you know that those are going to last you a lot longer? And if you do the arithmetic on that, you will find out that actually making the more, quote, expensive, I'm making air quotes, the more costly purchase is actually more economical. Now you're back to the idea of false economy, which is a whole nother thing we could spend hours and hours on.
Yeah, yeah, we could. I'm kicking myself right now. I was just telling him before the show, I said, I was without water for 15 days in this freeze. All of my pipes burst. It was raining under my house. And so it was so hard to get a plumber because I have a very old house. It's over 100 years old. And I have the old metal pipes. What do
Copper
you call?
pipes, yeah.
No, not copper.
Oh, not copper. Oh,
Galvanized.
galvanized pipe. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
You
this
do have
is
an old house.
old house. So I have galvanized pipe. They couldn't even come out and fix it. So by the time I could get someone to come out and fix it, he could only, just replace. And I did what I could, but what I should have done is waited a little bit longer, waited for the big guys who could fix it come and do a whole repipe. But I was without any running water. And the first time I went to a washateria, I got to tell you, it's been a long time. I did not realize it was 40 plus bucks just to do a couple of loads of clothes. I didn't realize it had
Wow.
gotten so
Yeah.
expensive at a washateria. I
No
was like,
idea.
wow. And I didn't even go, I live in Galveston. So anybody who's been here realized we don't have nice washaterias. So
Okay.
and none of them were nice. So it was still like ridiculous, and I thought, wow, I can't afford this, and what I should have done is afforded that, I should have, I'm kicking myself. So even when you have mindset, we still do some things. And I'm thinking, man, that was a mindset deal. That really was a mindset deal. I should have pushed through that belief a little bit more. And I
When you're in
probably
a
do
look, when
better.
you're in an emotionally charged state, it's one of the things that I tell people about trading, because I've been trading and I teach trading. I say, look, trading should be incredibly boring. If it's not incredibly boring, you're doing something wrong. When you're in an emotionally charged state, you have a tendency to make perhaps snap decisions, perhaps ignore some data. It happens, right? It just
Yeah.
does. You were in a situation not having water for 15 days. I remember Hurricane Sandy because I live in the Northeast. 12 days we had no electricity. Couldn't live in my house. Couldn't do anything. Um, the tendency is, I remember having a conversation with my wife. She's saying, we got to go out and buy a generator and do this and do that. If I had listened to her in that charged up state, because it was really inconvenient, yeah, I would have gone out and spent 10 grand for a generator for an event that happens, every once in a while. Right. And that would have been probably false economy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird because I can, I don't know. I guess I'm tougher on myself than I am on other people. I think we're all like that. Like I'll be kicking myself a while for this, and I don't want to. I'm gonna have to be mindful and like meditate on it
Sure.
the whole 9 yards. Like woulda, coulda, shoulda. The whole deal.
Got it.
So now what you're doing, so you did more than write a book though. You have like a 20-week course that you work
Well,
with.
yeah, I started with it. I actually wrote it as a course and I tested it with a dozen people and I was about to launch it. But people said, you should make this a book. This is your lead magnet. I'm like, yeah, but am I not eating my seed corn by doing that? If I just give it all away in the book, they're like, no, if the people like the book, they'll want to learn it from the master. So that took me down this year-long rabbit hole because I'd never written a book before. So all those infographics, all those pretty pictures that are in my book, I just dragged them off the internet. It's like, I got to get permission for these. I can't use these. So I had to go through that process. Then my designer said, these won't print well. You need to turn these into vector graphics. And it's like, oh, what's that? So now I got to learn what that is. I hired a guy in Serbia on Fiverr who for $10 a piece would convert them all in. That took time. It was a big undertaking. But I was really happy when that first, delivery of books came in. I cried. I'm like, I couldn't believe it because it was always on my bucket list to write a book. And it's like, oh my God, I did it. But what I really want is not to sell a $20 book, but to sell a $5,000 course. I mean, let's face it, that's where the money is. And that's where people are going to get the value. Because if all it took was books, we could empty all the schools and we could just build libraries and let people go in and have at it. But that's not how the world works.
No. As a coach, when you have individual business needs, if you really want to get value, coaching's where it's at. I'm currently being coached. So even in anything, I've got a coach and I also coach because I want to consistently update, not my methods, but I hear things all the time. I'm in a really amazing group coaching setting with other high performance entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And so the other business owners sometimes are more valuable than the coach. Sorry, Jonathan. He would just laugh at that. But I get so much from it. But also too, when I have very specific things, you can't, like I went through a terrible partnership during COVID, and I am the type that, well, it's me. I've built businesses for 25 years. I was a crisis intervention thing. I've taken businesses from the brink, to get them back. This is my company with two of these partners. And so I'll just do it. Doesn't matter if I'm like, nobody talks to me and I'm working by myself, and I'll just do it. And I was just running myself into the ground. And so in the coaching call, I'm like explaining my situation. They would hear me, and about like 2 or 3 weeks in, the whole place goes, if you were a client, what would you tell yourself? I'd be like, close it up. It's going to be scary. Yeah, this is a dream that's died, but it's not serving anyone at this point. And you're just going to kill yourself. That's what I would say. And they all kind of just looked at me like, duh, that's what we can't tell you. You got to do it for yourself. And I guess I felt like I needed permission, but having that bouncing board when you're struggling, because entrepreneurs, we have this itty bitty committee in our head all the time. You can work harder, you can do harder, you can do this, why can't you figure this out? And having other people say, you know what, be a little more kind to yourself and think about it this way. And it's extremely helpful, because a book has this much in it, but you might only need this part or to tweak this part. So I highly recommend it. What do you see is the biggest value at the end of your courses that you give, that is the takeaway for your clients, Henry?
Confidence. I give them confidence that they can do this themselves. Whole purpose of the exercise is to demystify money, because I was money was hidden away from me as a child, and most, as the parent of basically 3 adult boys right now, I actually went the other way, and actually was maybe a little bit too transparent about them, but I was sheltered from it. And many parents do. They think they're doing their kids a service. But as a child, I always wondered, are we rich? Are we poor? Are we middle class? I had no idea. My parents really had no idea. It wasn't until my father passed away when I was 40 that I actually sat down and I had to do an accounting for my mother because of the estate tax. And I had to sit down and figure it out. They had never done any sort of accounting. All they knew is every year except the year that both my sister and I were in college, they made more money than they spent. So they figured, oh, well, we must have money, but they had no idea how much, right? So they had no idea how much they could risk, what they could do. I remember my it's either my mother or my father, one of them said that the mistake we made was we didn't send you to private school because we didn't think we could afford it, private high school.
Right.
Had they known what the numbers were at the time, yes, they could have afforded it. Again, we're talking the 1970s. It's not like, the cost of education has gone parabolic since then. I mean, it's still expensive, but not like it is today. So they admitted that. But I looked at it and I said, well, all you had to do was a little planning. I mean, sit down. It probably would have taken you an afternoon and you could have figured out whether you could have afforded it instead of just doing this checkbook accounting. Well, if there's money in my checking account, and I know business owners who've run their business that way. Well, if there's money in my checking account, that means I must be making money, right? It's like, have you never heard of accounts receivable or accounts payable or taxes or contingent liabilities or any of that stuff? Of course it is.
They're completely avoidant. Yeah. I remember back in the day, there was an attitude of people that I grew up with, like, you're in 20s and you get checks. We didn't even have check cards. Like, that was new, right? So we would get checks. And as long as I have checks, I've got money. They'll still honor it. That's why you think, well, a hot check. Some people don't even know what that is now, but it's basically writing a check and the money's not in the bank and then hoping that it just goes.
Well, we would call that kiting checks, and people go to jail for that.
Well, the money will come in. I'm getting paid next week. It's okay. It's $1 or $2. It's
now you're back to the hand to mouth. And it's like 40 million people in this country, adults, live hand to mouth. I did that research when I was writing my book. I was gobsmacked by these numbers. That's like, and that basically meant that they were living literally paycheck to paycheck. And that's a tough way to live. Somebody asked me the other day on a podcast about, why do you say a balance sheet is much more a strong balance sheet is much more indicative of a strong, thriving company than a P&L? And I just said, well, just remember what happened in March, right?
Mhm.
People's P&Ls turned to spinach, right? They were gone. There were no more pay left. Right. Business stopped. But if you had a strong balance sheet, you can weather that storm. That means having assets, keeping your debt really low. Again, and there's really nothing that I wrote that I would consider to be revolutionary. But the goal was to put it all in one place and teach it to people in a systematic way and kind of rewire their brain a little bit. And again, become confident that you can do this yourself, or that you can hire a professional, but then be able to manage them, know the questions to ask, and not just hand them over all your money and say, have at it.
Right. And I think that this is basic skills. A lot of people, they niche so early on what they're going to do, whether it's, I'm going to do this really great flip house renovation, and I know what the cost is for this and this and this, but they don't think of all the other costs associated with running an REI business. Same with coaches, especially coaching. Well, there's not that much outlay. It's just me, and I'm the one giving the service. But then there's all these other things that you have to consider that will be the difference between that business still being there in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, that a lot of people they fly by night. I worked with a company, and we used to be proud to say we're building the plane as we're flying it. Yeah. And I love that expression. The idea is just soar. Don't wait and stagnate until you get it perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. You have to launch at one point. You got to start making action. But then there are some things that you should not forego. And the foundational stuff is really important. Having your accounting system to be able to look at it, to understand the difference. There's a lot of people who've owned businesses for quite some time that don't understand the difference between a P&L and a balance sheet.
I would say many, many, many people that I've dealt with in coaching, with a few exceptions, are really deficient in understanding really all the levers and all the moving parts. They don't know what a statement of cash flows is. And it's like, I met a guy once at a conference, and he's like, well, I'm going to hire an accountant and this, that, and the other thing, but I'm reading all these books, and I've got to learn all of this stuff. And he was, but how long have you been doing this? 6 months. It's like, all right, dude, slow down. Right.
Yeah.
If you want to be an accountant, go to accounting school. You need to know probably 90% of it is just kind of learning the vocabulary. I spend a lot of time when I'm teaching people finance, just that, what does go long? What does go short mean? Right. What do these things mean? Mm-hmm. Simple terms that we take for granted. You need to understand that. You need to understand the language, right? And then you need to understand your psychology. I could teach you to trade stocks. I think I could teach anybody how to trade stocks. But if you're too afraid to put a trade on because you're worried about losing money, I'm wasting my time and you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it is just getting through to the other side on understanding how money works and the flow of money and being acceptable with risk. But if you're in business, you're already acceptable with risk in some degree, more so than the majority of people. The majority of people,
that's where I would push back on that, because really? My personal opinion is that if you work for someone else, you are at a higher risk than you are for being your own boss. People are like,
I believe that.
How can that be? Yeah, but think about it.
But they don't think that way.
They don't, right? These are, again, poor money habits, because you have abdicated the fate of your livelihood to somebody else. One day you walk in and they fire you, or like with COVID, which again is an extreme, the bottom falls out, and it's like, you're going to have to now depend on the government, right? Government largesse. I mean, how long did it take them to diddle around with this $1.9 trillion thing? I write a twice a month newsletter, and I was saying this was needed in November. I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think we need this right now. The opportunity kind of came and went. You don't
Yeah.
want to
At
depend
this
on.
point, you don't want, I don't think that, I mean, there are a lot of people who are going to need this and but they needed the $2,000 a month that like Canada was getting when they first did the shutdown. You know,
Right.
why didn't we have that for the people under the threshold to get them through to that? And then when they talk about reopening, you can reopen. Instead, they tanked so much that you can say reopen left and right, but you can't reopen a company that's been dead and closed and everybody's working and cobbling something up overnight. You need money to do that. You need to open up bank accounts. You need to pay taxes.
No,
You
and
know,
people need to be confident that they can actually go out into the world. Right.
right.
You could open up every business in this country tomorrow, but I haven't cut my hair since before probably last February. I was actually a little thing that I did where I said I wasn't going to cut my hair until I'm fully vaccinated, and I get my second COVID vaccine tomorrow. So it was just kind of a little thing that I did. But even if I hadn't done that, I probably would have had my wife do it, and it would have looked awful, but it would have been done because I'm not going to go there. A friend of mine, a few weeks ago, we were on a Zoom call. I said, "You look awful." He goes, "Well, I have COVID." I said, "Where did you get it?" He goes, "Well, I went to get a massage. It's the only thing I can think of." I said, "Really, dude? At your age?" I'm 61 years old. You just went out to a massage. I hope it was one of the, it was a legitimate massage parlor. Let's not go down that way.
Poor friend.
Right. It wasn't the happy ending kind.
Yeah.
But no, he's like, yeah, it was a legitimate, and that's the only place I can think of where I got it. It's like I've been basically hunkered down.
Nuts. See, I haven't. I was out last summer. I was out. Our bars were open. We were open. It's South Texas.
Texas is different than the Northeast. Yeah.
I was very different. I got COVID twice. The first time we didn't know it was COVID.
Oh
yeah, first time I had no idea. I just knew that this was the most different sickness I'd ever had. It was like this nasty cold that never went away. And then I had a cough and it wasn't going away. And then COVID hit when I had just recovered. Like,
wow.
I went to talk to a doctor and I said, I think I had it because I've had this cough for 8 weeks and I've never had a cough like this. And I run out of breath. And he prescribed me something. And by the time the prescription came through, because it was a teleservice, because they had just closed everything, the cough was gone. And so it was funny because my partner, he came home and I've never seen him this sick. And he just laid on the bed and he was done. His entire crew got sick at once and it tested as flu A. So they all thought they had flu A because he went and he was older and they were all sick. I mean, the sickest they could have gotten.
Wow.
They all went back to work. And then I got it again around Christmas time before Christmas. And so I was around family at Christmas. Thankfully, nobody got it from me, but I had it. I tested positive. And but that one was a lot. It was more painful, the cough. My chest burnt and with it. Whereas I didn't have that before, but it was milder in the end. I didn't have the 8 weeks of cough.
Wow.
But both times I got it, the only person I was around was my significant other. All the times that I was like out and doing stuff, I got a facial, I got another, didn't get it then. Have no idea how we caught it or who we caught it from. He knew the first time. The second time we both had no idea because he worked solo, not around anyone outside.
Right.
And we are very much home people.
Yeah, we've been. My 29-year-old got it. He went out to the Hamptons last summer with 11 of his friends, and then they came back and every single one of them had it except the one girl who had already had it in March. She was the only one who didn't. But we said, you can't come home. We have an apartment in New York City. I said, you got to go there. You got to stay away until the coast is clear. We take this stuff very seriously because
no one's had it before. Yeah, it's very contagious. It's like, I'm not a denier of it. I know that there's a thing called COVID. I got it. It was not like anything I got. For me personally, it was not as bad as a mononucleosis. I thought I was going to die. And I got that twice in my youth.
Oh my God. No, that I never had.
I was at the height of health. I mean, at both of those times. And I remember laying in the bathroom thinking I was going to die. Oof, like I never want to get sick like that again. So it wasn't like that for me, but other people, it hits different. And here where I'm at, University of Texas Medical Branch, we have one of the largest teaching hospitals in the area on an island. So all the other counties come here. So we get all the COVID cases, right? Hey. And they said, well, how is your COVID? My healthcare. So they've been seeing all the COVID cases. It's not like somewhere in the middle of nowhere where you're not really seeing it, right? They're seeing it daily, multiple people. And I said, well, that's interesting the way you said my COVID. And they said, yeah, it's really weird. It's different for everybody.
It is.
But we do know that obesity, if your BMI is 36 and above, you have a 46% chance of getting into the ICU. And
I'm a type 2 diabetic, so I wanted to make sure there's about a 20% risk factor on that. So, I'm not fooling around because, I don't want to die from this ridiculous virus that's going around. So, if you wear a mask and maintain physical distance with people, I mean, we played a lot of golf last summer. I said, that's great. That's a physically distant sport, right? I stripe it right down the middle. Everybody else is in the woods. We're automatically separated from each other, right? It's a perfect sport for us.
Yeah. No, I love being outside with golf. I won't wear a mask outside. Here it's not really required to be outside, but I do put it on for pretty much. It's almost like I'm worried about what other people say because I'm not like near anyone in the store. I go to a store, there's not like people all around, but I do it. I'm going to do my part.
It's a minor inconvenience, all things considered. It's like, even if it saves one life, just do it. Yeah. Why is it such, again, I'm not going to make
other people do it. I know
I tend to be pretty compliant.
I know someone who suffers a lot from it, and she will go in the middle of the night, like she has a crushing anxiety, she has COPD, and for her, she can't. So the people at the store like even know her, and she was, I'm going to stay away from everybody, and I'm going to do this, and she like kind of shops on her time. Okay. And they allow that, and because why should it be this panic-inducing experience for her? And I'm like, I'm cool with that. Like, just don't breathe on me, like, stay away, it's
in your case, stay 12 feet away. Let's just double it.
Like, I'm going to wash my hands, and I think the touching of the face, like I see people whose just hands are, I'm like, you're going to get it. You got to like not be touching that mask all the time. I think for some people, the mask is not going to be as good because they're so handsy. I know my significant other, we go somewhere, he's touched. I'm like, why? Stop touching everything. Stop touching everything, honey. Love you, but goodness
some people are like that.
Anyway, guys, we've gotten off track because we're having a great conversation. We're talking to Henry Daas.
Yeah, you can always edit that out. Right?
Yeah, no, it's a nice talk, because we can have different viewpoints, and we do. You and I have different viewpoints, but we can still be friendly. We can still have a nice talk, and that's what the world needs. So we're talking to Henry Daas. That's the last name is Daas, Daas. So if you want to learn more, get a free book, then all you have to do is go to the links, which will have everything at the bottom like we all do. You can visit him. He's got several websites. DaasKnowledge.com. That's DAAS knowledge.com. Or you can go to Henry Daas, HenryDaas.com, and you can visit him. He also has a freebie book, and we're going to put that link under here, and you really need to go to get that. And then I see another freebie. Is that for our guys?
If you go to the podcast.knowledge.com, it'll take you to a little form that you have to fill out. But I give a free month of coaching, which basically is 4 sessions. We'll talk about business. We'll talk about money. We can talk about, baseball cards. We can talk about screenwriting. I'm a screenwriter. I've written 11 screenplays. Whatever it is you want to talk about. It's a good opportunity to especially if you're an entrepreneur, just kick the tires. There's something that I offered like 10 years ago. Then as the practice grew, there wasn't any need to do it. But when COVID really hit in April, I opened up my practice for April, May, and June, free of charge to anybody who wanted. So I had almost 100 phone calls with people during that time. And I only put it out to 2 networks I'm a part of. And it was nice. I had a lot of chats, made a lot of new friends, and gave people an opportunity to really, up close and personal, see what, at least in my case, what a coaching relationship is like.
I highly recommend this for anyone who's not had any coaching to get an idea of what that is, because it can really be transformative and you can get so much value from it. So again, guys, we're here at the end of the show. Thank you, Henry, for being here today.
Thank you.
Such a nice conversation with me. It was Henry Daas. Henry, Daas, D-A-A-S. And once again, guys, you have a wonderful week. Don't forget to like and share with your friends. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review. That's how we get wonderful people like Henry on our show. And we're able to get great guests to you, wonderful content week after week. So again, have a great week. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening, and please go give us a 5-star rating on your preferred listening platform if you enjoyed the show. This helps us reach more listeners like you and keep booking amazing guests. If you'd like to join our growing EntrePods community, want our social media links to like or share, or inquire about one-on-one strategy calls with our host Jennifer, please visit EntrePods.com. See you next time, and here's to you and your best life imaginable.